We can't rely on these industries to keep our economy going, so we got to become part of it. We got to come up with our own initiatives and start to diversify our economy.
Tonight, Opaskwayak Cree Nation is about to launch itself into the upper stratosphere of yet another new industry. Still no word on the investigation into sexual assault allegations made in a decades-old report involving Manitoba Hydro.
And I was really confused at first because I'm like, well, why? I'm totally not a Barbie person. So it was really overwhelming when I found out.
And a Cree filmmaker's story of being approached by the makers of a popular doll. Good evening, welcome to APTN National News. I'm Dennis Ward. Alberta Child Services wants to bring in more Indigenous caretakers to house children in need. And they were at the Canadian Native Friendship Centre in Edmonton for an information session. APTN's Chris Stewart was there.
About 24 people came to the Friendship Centre to listen to a presentation from Alberta Children's Services. The group, a mixture of social work students and prospective caretakers, were told about the need to have Indigenous families look after Indigenous children. Tim Gillis is the Associate Director of the Edmonton region for Alberta Child Services. He says these sessions have been held in the Edmonton area for the past year and held sessions in Saddle Lake Cree Nation and Samson Cree Nation.
So we have communicated with our partners, our First Nation and Indigenous partners, to explore ways that we can engage and recruit the community members, Indigenous community members, in order to support them, train them, and to work towards ensuring that we have placements that are culturally supportive to that child's community and background.
This meeting today was extremely encouraging and reassuring, which to me is a big deal for something that fails so many children over the years. And just to know that Indigenous children alone, 3,000 in the system right now, need a home. My heart breaks for them too.
She is hopeful that the child protection system has improved and wants the Alberta government to continue to recruit Indigenous caretakers.
I would appreciate and encourage the government, the child system, to do more of these, not just like a one-time off system all over the city, the residential reserves, the reserves, all of those things, because this is important, and there are so many people out there that do want to give a good home to a child, but they don't know how to get about it.
Gillis says the plan is to expand outside the Edmonton area and to engage more Indigenous communities in Alberta. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
In the summer of 2018, Manitoba's Clean Environment Commission released a report about allegations of racism, discrimination, and sexual violence allegedly at the hands of workers on hydroelectric projects and members of the RCMP. The report was dated May 2018, but wasn't made public until August. Now, word that police have yet to start an investigation called for by the provincial government. Last week, members from 4 First Nations in northern Manitoba who are partnered with Manitoba Hydro on a hydroelectric project held a public rally outside the provincial legislature. They're calling for a public inquiry into the allegations. In the fall of 2018, RCMP handed the investigation over to the Ontario Provincial Police. The RCMP are also implicated in the report. The OPP tells APTN National News that investigation hasn't even started. Bruce Owens is the Public Affairs Officer for Manitoba Hydro. He says Hydro is not responsible for the standstill.
We are cooperating 100% on our end, but beyond that, OPP or RCMP do not share anything of an investigative nature with us.
A northern Manitoba First Nation is setting its sights on the skies. Opaskwayak Cree Nation announced the community is one step closer to developing an aerospace parts manufacturing facility. The facility is in the second stages of planning after development began in 2017. Opaskwayak, who will own the project, invested $50,000. The community has received an additional $170,000 from federal and provincial governments to complete Phase 2. Opaskwayak hopes to begin full production within the next 2.5 years. The operation will create 20 jobs in the first year and another 80 over the course of 10 years. OCN Chief Christian Sinclair says the new venture is much needed.
It would make perfect sense for us to diversify our economy. Because if you look back at the region in the PA arm of County and OCN, the railway was shut down, the Tolko mill was shut down, so it was really very, very grim for the region. So Opaskwayak looked at that and acknowledged and recognized, saying that we can't rely on these industries to keep our economy going. So we got to become part of it. We got to come up with our own initiatives and start to diversify our economy.
And we'd like to hear what you think. Here's how to continue the conversation. Send your emails to news@aptn.ca. Find us online at aptnnews.ca and on youtube.com/aptnnews. Also, you can follow APTN News on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram for the latest Indigenous headlines. Some encouraging news for those who have had the flu shot. Researchers say this year's vaccine is 72% effective in preventing infection across all age groups. That's a huge jump from last year's, which was less than 20%. Kids have been especially hit hard by the flu this year. As of January 12th, Public Health says more than 600 Canadian children have been hospitalized because of complications from the flu. As experts say, the epidemic appears different depending on where you live in the country, and that some areas may not have reached their peak. A Cree filmmaker has been named by the maker of Barbie as one of 60 role models. More on that coming up after the break. Here's a look at your Saturday weather forecast starting on the East Coast. +1 under the sun for Halifax, 0 in St. John's. -26 for Kuujjuaq, -13 and sunny skies in Cartwright. -18 in Saguenay, 24 below for Chibougamau. -9 in Toronto and Peterborough, 15 below under sunny skies in North Bay. 22 below for Thunder Bay, -28 in Sioux Lookout. 33 below for Churchill, sunny, and -32 for God's Lake. -25 in Winnipeg and Gimli, 20 below for Brandon. In Saskatchewan, much warmer, -5 for Regina, +2 for Swift Current, -3 in Meadow Lake, -23 in Stony Rapids. Welcome back. Support continues across Canada for those opposing pipeline development on Wet'suwet'en territory in British Columbia. Tomorrow evening there will be a fundraiser at a historic downtown Ottawa nightclub. Barrymore's on Bank Street will host the Wet'suwet'en benefit concert at 8 p.m. Several groups will grace the stage, including Kevin Schofield and Cody Coyote of Element Radio in Ottawa. The headliner will be the Indigenous folk rock duo Digging Roots. The event is to raise money for people at the camps and for the legal defense of the Wet'suwet'en. Popular children's toy Barbie is celebrating her 60th birthday this year. In honor of the milestone, Barbie creator Mattel is launching a new campaign to showcase 60 Canadian female role models. Sonia Ballantyne is a Cree filmmaker and writer from Mississippi First Nation in Manitoba. She has been chosen as one of the 60 role models, and she joined us earlier today. Sonia, thanks so much for joining us. How did you find out that you were chosen to be one of the 60 role models?
Well, I was contacted by Mattel through my film company, Codebreaker Films. We originally thought it was a request for a commercial, and when we contacted them, they asked me if I would consider being a role model for them, and I was really confused at first because I'm like, well, why? I'm totally not a Barbie person. So it was really overwhelming when I found out, and being able to be a role model by them, be considered a role model by them is something I'm hoping I can live up to.
And so what does this mean for you?
It just means, like, for me personally, it is really, it's like being named the chief, I guess. I don't know, like, but it is very cool to me just because all the work I do focuses on making sure that Indigenous girls have a hero that they can look up to. And the fact that I, too, might be one of those heroes is really scary, but it also is something that I hope that I can strive for in the future, just to remember that always.
And now you've also started a petition to Mattel to get a Cree Barbie. How did this come about, and how's that going?
Yeah, it came about because I speak at a lot of schools, especially to Indigenous youth, and after girls would ask me if I knew and personally knew Barbie, and I said no, then they would ask about how they could go about getting a Barbie that looked like me. And I said, well, they're not coming out with that. Like, and they're like, well, why? And so I took that question of why and decided, like, well, why? So I created the petition just to make Mattel aware of how many people are supportive of an idea of more with an Indigenous Barbie that isn't in buckskin and regalia. Though those are important as well, but just the idea of having a modern Barbie that is Indigenous with a nation is something that I hope they'll consider in the future.
And how can people looking to help out with that petition, where can they find it?
Well, if they Google my full name, Sonia Ballantyne, and change.org, or follow me on Codebreaker Films on Facebook, or my personal Twitter at honey_child on Twitter, they could find me there. They could find the petition link there. And yeah, I think it's pretty easy to find, hopefully, and I hope you'll sign it.
Sonia, all really cool stuff. Really appreciate you taking some time for us.
Thank you.
Vancouver police have announced that through an elaborate sting operation, they've arrested 47 men who intended to solicit sex from a minor. APTN's Tina House has more.
Detectives from our counter-exploitation unit posted decoy advertisements on web escort listings and social media platforms for sexual services.
47 men are now facing charges for attempting to buy sex from teenage girls between the ages of 15 to 17 years. Or so they thought. Upon arriving at the designated hotel room, they were met instead by police officers and arrested. Some of them were identified as a firefighter, a member of a motorcycle gang, and a teacher, and including Ken Clement, the CEO of the Canadian Aboriginal AIDS Network and former Vancouver School Board trustee. Ginger Gosnell Myers has known Ken Clement for a number of years and is disturbed by the charges.
I have to be honest, I wasn't entirely shocked. I was shocked that he was caught trying to get sex off of a minor. We try to hold our leaders up quite high, and Ken has been a leader in our community for a long time. But at the same time, I feel that our community needs to talk about a lot of the harms that we are perpetrating because of the residential school experiences. And I know that Ken is a residential school survivor.
Scott Clark has also known Ken Clement for many years, and he just can't believe the allegations.
I was taken back quite a bit because I know Ken Clement, and so I was really astounded that that had happened and how long ago it had happened. And very importantly, what we did learn in the media was that this is only a short-term sort of sting operation. They didn't have the real human capacity to get all the other folks that were involved in that. So that was my immediate sort of reaction.
And I think just out of safety and precautions, we can't allow somebody who has had innuendo and now charges laid participate any further in a leadership capacity or in a community support capacity.
Each of the men that were arrested were interviewed. Many of them provided, statements, attempted to provide an explanation. Some dismissed the officers. Some told them to actually go out and find criminals to arrest.
Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
Some frightening moments east of Toronto after a vehicle plunged into a community center pool. No one was in the children's pool when the car smashed through the front entrance, continued down the stairs and through a glass window early this morning. 36-year-old woman was taken from the vehicle. She wasn't hurt, but as you can see, the building sustained significant damage. Time for another quick break, but stick around. There's more to come. Here's the rest of Saturday's weather forecast, picking back up in northern Alberta. +5 with showers for Grand Prairie and Peace River. +8 in Calgary, 7 above in Edmonton, +6 in Lethbridge. 8 above for Tofino with showers, +6 in Campbell River with rain. -2 and snow for Fort Nelson, +2 for Dease Lake. -8 in Old Crow, -12 for Beaver Creek. In the NWT, -2 in Fort Liard and Trout Lake, -17 for Yellowknife. -30 for Sax Harbor, -8 and snow for Colville Lake. -39 for Whale Cove and Baker Lake, 38 below in Chesterfield. -40 in Tallyoak, -36 for Joe Haven. Welcome back. It's a groundbreaking study that will paint a picture of what the state of Te Reo Maori could look like in the future. We meet an Indian family from Auckland who are thrilled to be part of the research and are embracing Te Reo Maori.
Good morning, guys. It's time to wake up. It's school day. Did you guys sleep well?
If I could speak Maori in the future, I would be much better because I might even get a little more money for knowing Maori.
9-year-old Sahib Marman loves cars, spending time with whānau and learning Te Reo Māori.
I also learned this thing to 7. It's like Tahi Rua Toru Wha Rima Ono Whitu. We learned the days of the week, like over there. Rahina, Ratu, Rapa, Ramir, Rapir, Rahoroi, and Ratapu.
Te Reo Māori is spoken every day at Sahib's West Auckland School.
We use it a lot, like right there, St. Paul's Karakia. We use it every day in the mornings for prayer.
What do you think about being able to learn Māori at your school?
I think it's good because then once I know it fully, I'll be able to speak 2 languages.
It's quite heartening for me to know that people in New Zealand still embrace that Aborigine culture, which we don't see in other part of the world. So that's if that's the New Zealand culture, then I want my kids to embrace it.
I'm a hardcore All Blacks fan, and I see them do haka, and one of the first things I wanted to know is that my son can do haka in future, and that of course is going to start with him learning Maori to start with.
Sahib and his whānau are involved in a groundbreaking study that will shape our future.
It's really, really critical that we understand what is shaping development of our children growing up in New Zealand today. The Growing Up in New Zealand study is one of the largest longitudinal studies we've had in New Zealand. It has 6,853 children who were engaged from before their birth. So they were enrolled when their mums were pregnant, and we invited the mums and also their partners to be part of the study from the beginning. To understand what shapes the development of those children who are born in New Zealand today, so that we can then use that evidence to inform policies that are likely to improve their well-being. Oh, yeah, yeah.
Now in its 8th year, research leader Professor Susan Morton says they used numerous techniques to engage with whānau.
Going and visiting them in their own homes. We do design a set of questions, a set of tools that are designed to understand what is shaping the well-being of their children, but also to understand what's going on for their family and the environment around them. So we do that, we engage with the families and now the children themselves every 2 or so years.
The study follows the children from birth until they're 21. 24% of them identify as Māori, 21% Pasifika, 16% Asian, and 66% European.
Did you hear that?
Miroko.
Miraka. So what do you think miraka sounds like?
Moon.
Or
Milk.
oh, can't wait.
As well as those face-to-face connections, we also engage with the families electronically, so we'll send information out to them, but we'll also use tools that collect information from them electronically. Actually, because the families told us they wanted to do that.
Noki.
So it must be a worm.
Yeah. Oh boy.
The research will also show the children's engagement in te reo Māori. That's why Professor Morton and her team partnered up with a Māori university.
So while we're checking how these children are doing with te reo at the age of 8, we also know how they were reported as doing earlier on in their lives. And we know what their parents' capacity and capability is in terms of te reo from what they've told us right from the time of pregnancy.
This study's really our first opportunity to have a look at the te reo Māori data that's been produced. We want to find out what the catalysts and drivers of Māori language revitalisation are.
Kia ora. Kia ora. Hea te kaupapa o tērā? Ko te kaupapa o tō mātou mahi, ke te ako mātou i te reo pōhewa.
Researcher Te Kani Kingi says the study will help shape policies to ensure the survival of te reo Māori.
Okay, thank you.
It will provide us, again, with a real opportunity to understand as to why people with tamariki and why parents are encouraging their children to learn te reo Māori, what the reasons for that are, what the opportunities are, and how we, as a wānanga, which is built on our reo and tikanga, can help support our whānau and our communities. At least te reo Māori just isn't something that Māori are just enthusiastic about. It's actually something for our entire nation to embrace.
For Sahib and his whānau, speaking te reo Māori will become a part of their everyday lives.
In the future, if I could speak Māori, I would teach my kids Māori.
You know, with kids being part of the future of New Zealand, I think it's an exciting thought. I want them to live a really Kiwi life.
We've done our part in bringing them here to this beautiful country, and it is whatever they make out of their life.
Thanks for coming to my school.
Well, that is your APTN National News for this Friday. For the latest Indigenous news, visit our website, aptnnews.ca, and download the APTN News app. An all-new episode of APTN Investigates is next. I'm Dennis Ward. Have a great night.